if we keep playing and fighting for each other. And no matter what happens, we just say, what's next? That's all we do. Somebody turn on some damn music.
You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos. Talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. We've got everything you need, money lines, memes, and matadors.
Well, you want to quit, Ethan? That'll be the day.
Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro.
And Ryan Mainville.
The Line Matadors. The Casino Cowboys. The Parlay Picadors.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. You dig. With
The Gambling Gauchos. Oh, and one more thing. It's all West Texas. It always has been.
Welcome into the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro, he's Kyle Jacobson, and Ryan Money Mainville. Texas Tech won a basketball game. Patrick Mahomes is going to the Super Bowl. We're all on top of the world, guys. How you doing?
And Zach McPherson.
And Zach McPherson. And I guess that's it.
It was either Zach McPherson or Kerry Hyder.
Yep.
Out of the NFC.
And Kurasek and Anthony Lynn. All of them. Big Hen already chiming in. Y'all mind if we have a weekend? Do not mind.
Don't mind if I do.
Don't mind if we do. Where do you guys want to – let's start with basketball and then get back to – well, I don't know. It's so fresh. You want to talk about the Chiefs first?
Sure.
Let's do Chiefs first. Patrick Mahomes gutting it out. 6 for 6 in my prize picks. Don't worry about that. Getting to pay for the Super Bowl party for everyone. Great championship weekend. Let's start with the Eagles 49ers. Shanahan was really good through 3 quarterbacks this season. Can't be great with the 4th quarterback, especially a guy who came in late. AFC fame. AAF? What was he in? Was he in the USFL, AAF, XFL? Probably all 3.
XFL.
Legend in his own right, Johnson there. The Eagles look really good. But did the Eagles have the easiest run to a championship appearance of all time with the Giants and the hurt 49ers?
Yes.
Maybe the easiest NFC championship run to a Super Bowl that I can remember. I mean, they'd already beaten the Giants twice. Terrible matchup for the Giants. Brock Purdy getting hurt ruined all of their chances. Tough. On the other side, the Chiefs going through a couple of tough games with Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. We saw the Burrowhead comments leading up to the game. Chris Jones dropped Burrowhead 3 separate times in his closing press conference this week. The fans were incredible through the first quarter. Were great the whole game, but just on another level in the first quarter. They settled into the game a little bit once Burrow had some success, but 2 early penalties, 4 sacks early, just incredible atmosphere. And immediately after the game, Travis Kelce, Burrowhead my ass. This is Mahomes' house. Legendary line.
Did you see Mahomes walking in pregame through the tunnel?
Yeah, pushing his glasses up like this.
Yeah. Hit him with that move right there. Yeah, this one felt – well, I mean, look, there's always a lot on the line in the AFC Championship game, but this is a stage that Mahomes has been on. This was his 5th time. This one felt like it had some extra juice, though. And, man, when we talked about it beforehand, Rob, you asked me back before the divisional round, who would you rather see the Chiefs play? I said the Bengals. They have to get that monkey off their back. And it was looking bad there in the 4th quarter. I was like, man, we're about to enter a narrative in terms of like the legacy talk. We're about to enter the narrative that Mahomes can't even win at home against Burrow, and that would have been hard to recover from a legacy standpoint, and they gutted it out. And quarterbacks aren't a team win. He did have a great play at the end there, did just enough to win, but the Chiefs defense had some key plays. Special teams had some key plays. Man, they're just devastated by injuries, but did enough to win the game.
Chiefs defense, first 2 drives, last 2 drives was incredible and pretty good in the middle. Only gave up 20 points. The tip drill pick on the second to last drive, and then the final drive, obviously, with the sack to finish the game off. I mean, really good. I thought Andy Reid lost the game on the surrender punt, giving the ball to Joe Burrow. I did. I was done. Field goal wins it. It's over. Ryan, what'd you think?
Fun football game. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, after watching 49ers game earlier, it was terrible. Anytime you get a stinker like that on championship weekend, it's a bit of a letdown. And so to have this one go down to the wire with all the talk that was surrounding the game in the beginning, that's a huge win. They lost a lot of guys in the process. We'll see what they look like in a couple of weeks. I just checked the line on Action right now. Eagles are 2-point favorites. So we'll see how that line shifts as the Super Bowl gets closer. But, man, talking about the defense, I really do think that's kind of the formula that Texas Tech's defense tried to apply this season, was you kind of live and die by the pass rush, and you allow the secondary to make plays whenever you pressure the quarterback. And felt like they kept bending, but they didn't always break. And, yeah, it was just a fun football game. I enjoyed it a lot.
You mentioned some injuries. The early one to Snead I thought was going to be more impactful. Obviously, it was. Late, you see the tight end get out of the slot a couple of times. You can't duck your head like that and hit. I mean, he knocked himself out. You would assume with 2 weeks, though, he'll be back. I don't want to assume too much. A couple of other injuries tonight. Give Mahomes an extra 2 weeks. Who knows if that's a good thing or bad thing with a high ankle sprain. They generally take 4 to 6, but that'll be 3. So should be healthy here for a Super Bowl. And this is the one I wanted, 1 seed versus 1 seed. Kelsey brothers in the mix. Obviously not the Cowboys, but if it wasn't the Cowboys, I think this is going to be the best game.
I think I like the Eagles up to about 4. I thought it was going to open more like Eagles -3.5, Eagles -4. I think at FanDuel, like right after the game, I think it opened close to a pick'em, and maybe some places it's starting to go more like Eagles -2, like money said. At less than a field goal, I'm inclined to take Philly just because of the injuries, and they've just been so solid all year. I think they might be the better team on the defensive side of the football. And without knowing if Mahomes is going to be full strength, plus all those other guys. I mean, the Chiefs were trotting out guys that I had literally never heard of.
Kemp, that was his first catch of the year.
When he came in, I was like, "Who is Kemp?" Like, yeah. I don't know who that guy is. And I mean, I'm not a guy who knows the NFL as good as I don't watch it as much as I watch college. I was like, I feel like I've heard of most of the Chiefs receivers. And so when Kemp came in, there were other dudes I was like, I've not even heard of this guy.
I have a couple questions for you here, Kyle, off the chat line.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a quad 1 win?
For the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And then also, are the Eagles the Chiefs Super Bowl? Or are the Chiefs the Eagles Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you could say that. Another question, is this Jalen Hurts legacy talk? I know this is a joke, but no. Not in the same way that the Bengals, Burrow, Mahomes legacy talk was involved. Legacy talk will be much more heavily leaned toward Mahomes throughout this 2-week stretch. If he can win a second out of 5, that's pretty good trajectory.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, today kind of epitomized getting an A on the group project without doing much, but he didn't have to, as well as their defense was playing. And yeah, Mahomes, you're looking at it. This is only his 5th year as a starter, and if that concludes, he already has a great kind of foundation in terms of this legacy talk. 5 division titles, 3 Super Bowl appearances, probably going to get his 2nd NFL MVP this season. If he wins 2 Super Bowls in his first 5 seasons, what is he, 27? You've kind of laid the foundation for okay, we could be a decade from now having some pretty serious conversations. I remember this was a debate on First Take, or one of those. Maybe it was the other one with what's Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp's show called? Undisputed.
Undisputed.
Yeah. It was on one of those. It was after Mahomes' 2nd season when he won MVP his 1st year, Super Bowl MVP the 2nd year. Could he retire and be a Hall of Famer after 2 seasons? And one of them thought yes, one of them thought no. But I think he could legitimately retire after 5 seasons and probably be a Hall of Famer. But yeah, there's kind of a very select group of guys that have more than one Super Bowl championship as a quarterback, and he has an opportunity to do that in 2 weeks, and still has several years left in his prime, hopefully, to also take another crack at adding to his tally. So it's exciting stuff in that respect.
I think also maybe an underrated aspect of the legacy talk will be Andy Reid's legacy talk. It's kind of already been discussed a couple of times through this playoffs. Is he the greatest coach in the NFL right now? And maybe ever? I think he's encroaching, not quite Belichick, not quite Chuck Noll, these guys who have 3 or 4 Super Bowls to their credit, but I think Andy Reid now is encroaching in top 5 coaches of all time, kind of quietly. He went to 5 NFC championships, 1 Super Bowl with the Eagles. They fired him. He immediately went to the Chiefs and made them a 10-year, powerhouse. So they finally get Mahomes and cross the threshold. But if he can win a 2nd Super Bowl, I think he will really cement his legacy as one of the greatest of all time. I think it's a question now, but if he wins multiple Super Bowls, I think he really, really sets him up for some good conversations in that respect. Kyle, you don't agree?
I'm not there on Andy Reid. He's choked so many times in the playoffs. I think it negates the highs. There have been so many just really bad lows. Not bad seasons, but just blown leads in the playoffs, losing as a favorite, losing at home. You look at his resume, okay, he should have had 4 Super Bowls by now or something, and then he'd be in that conversation. But until Mahomes got there, he kind of had a reputation of just being a postseason choker over and over. So, yeah. He's a really good coach, great in the regular season, very good resume, but I wouldn't put him in that top 5 conversation at the moment.
Who's the best coach in the NFL right now?
Kyle Shanahan.
Okay. Really?
What?
Really?
Yeah, really.
Okay. I would put him in the top 5.
He's one throw away from having the exact same resume as Andy Reid, more or less, and he did it with nobody near the talent of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Well, Andy's been there for 20 years.
Okay, and he has one Super Bowl title, and it was against Kyle Shanahan when Jimmy Garoppolo was about 1 foot away from clinching that. So if you gave Kyle Shanahan a guy like Patrick Mahomes, it'd be unreal.
I think Super Bowls are
in my opinion.
I think Super Bowls are important, but there's also, longevity and 10-win seasons and conference championships and all that too. I think.
How long has Andy Reid been doing this?
25 years as a head coach.
Okay, do you think 20 years from now Kyle Shanahan might have 1 Super Bowl to his name?
Might, but I said this year.
Yeah. So Kyle Shanahan's 38, wonder kid. So he's 20 years light on experience versus Reid, but
and right now in Super Bowls he's got 28-3 as the offensive coordinator and a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter against the Chiefs and Andy Reid that he collapsed in.
If you gave, I don't know if he collapsed. He dialed up a great play and Jimmy G missed the throw.
Yeah.
If you gave Kyle Shanahan the Chiefs roster for the last 5 years, we have at least 1 Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, so does Andy Reid.
Right, he only has the 1.
Right, but Does he have the Chiefs roster?
Does who have the Chiefs roster?
And Kyle Shanahan.
No.
I would argue he has a better roster in some respects.
No, he doesn't.
Besides quarterback.
And that's kind of a big asterisk.
Sure.
I mean, besides the whole Patrick Mahomes to Josh Johnson drop off, very comparable rosters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when Brock Purdy was out there, very comparable.
Yeah.
Old pump fake Purdy. Kyle Shanahan. You know what? When I asked that question, I thought you were going to say the Vikings coach. So respect to you for not saying that.
I think you could make an argument for Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. I guess you could make an argument for Bill Belichick, although I don't know anymore.
Have you seen his numbers with and without Tom Brady?
Yeah.
It is stark.
Also, pretty small sample size without Brady.
Sure. Well, before and after.
And, he doesn't have a – I don't really – so the NFL is a harsh business, and guys like Matt Rule know this, but GM does absolutely nothing for him. And they're like, all right, we're going to fire you after giving you Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and whoever as your starting quarterback. Like, the deck is totally stacked against you. So Bill Belichick with, an aging Cam Newton and Mac Jones / Bailey Zappi is, a little bit of an unfair comparison versus all the Brady years.
Right. Well, you can also go back to, Cleveland and Drew Bledsoe.
Oh, yeah, the Clinton administration?
Yeah. Well,
you could do that.
He's never won a division championship without Tom Brady. Briggs says Mike McCarthy is the best coach in the NFL. Ryan Bradley throws out Bill O'Brien. Back to the NFL as the offensive coordinator. Speaking of Mike McCarthy, new offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. Thoughts on that, Ryan?
Well, so I saw the Kellen Moore news first. Oh, bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
I saw the Kellen Moore news first. I did not see the aspect of it that Mike McCarthy would be calling plays. And so I'm interested. I'm interested to see how it pans out, what it actually looks like. It's obviously been a couple of years since McCarthy has been that involved in the offensive play calling, especially. So, yeah, I'm intrigued. But I think, if it doesn't work, then hopefully, probably not because it's the Cowboys, but hopefully if it doesn't work next year, you wash your hands, you blow it up, and you try and right the ship. But we'll see, man, because it's been a minute since he's been in that position, and I don't know. Part of me is just it's a change, and that's just kind of what I wanted from the Cowboys this offseason, was just make a change in some regards. I don't know if this will exactly end up being a great change, but we'll see.
I think when you look at the Cowboys, we'll get to Texas Tech basketball soon, but you look at the Cowboys, Dan Quinn being retained, I thought to myself, you know what? That probably means he thinks that he has a chance to still be the Dallas Cowboys head coach in the next 2 years. Mike McCarthy getting rid of Kellen Moore and the offensive line coach and the running backs coach leads me to believe Mike McCarthy also thinks that Dan Quinn has a good opportunity to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys in the next 2 years. And I think in Mike McCarthy's respects, if Mike's going to go down, Mike's going to go down because Mike went down and not because Kellen Moore went down. So I in some ways I respect the move from Mike McCarthy. If you want to go down with your own fire, try it. But if it's not successful and it's not successful early, you could see a move in season, and it would be Mike McCarthy getting fired.
Do you think they can make the playoffs next year and they'll still can them if they lose in, I don't know, wild card divisional?
Yeah, I think with this move, with Mike McCarthy taking over the offense, and I don't know if he'll call plays. I don't know if he'll call plays the whole time. I don't know if he'll be in a position to really be full-time as the play caller. That's what he said today. If he is, and they lose in the wild card round, he will be fired, because this is a move that says, hey, we expect to be in the Super Bowl. If you can't do that, you're not going to do it here.
Yeah, wild card. I think if you lose wild card, he's canned. If you lose divisional, I think he's probably still canned.
I agree.
And that's a lot of decades that you're trying to snap a streak with, but we'll see.
D. Wayne wants to know if this is a poncho. No, it's a short sleeve hoodie. Thank you.
Speaking of Belichick,
Yep. Yeah, I went full Belichick here. It is the Game Guard version of the camo, though. Wearing a Campbell Goucher's hat from Cardinals. Hey, we're in the Cardinal Sports Center studio. If you need to gear up for any sport or sporting event in the next few weeks, you can do it at Cardinal Sports Center, either in person in Lubbock, Texas, or Plano, Texas, where we are represented today, or online at mycardinalsports.com. Kyle, did you know you dropped out there for a couple minutes?
yes, I left on purpose to go check the bird because I've got some tweets popping off right now. So I was just making sure there's nobody I had to respond to.
Tweets popping
Yeah.
up. Okay. Let's get to Texas Tech basketball.
Hey, but before we do,
Uh-huh.
Cincinnati versus Kansas City in the AFC Championship game was kind of like Texas Tech LSU. Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow. Do you know what they eat in Cincinnati?
Skyline chili?
Absolute garbage.
Oh. You don't
So
like Skyline chili?
No, I prefer Regino barbecue chili or anything else they serve up at Regino barbecue. So if the fine people of Cincinnati want to cope with the L, now that they have a new mayor, Patrick Mahomes, maybe he can like issue some citywide decree that he's replacing Skyline chili with Regino barbecue and get the fine, wonderful people of Cincinnati, our new Big 12 brethren, the people of Cincinnati, some ribs, some brisket, some turkey, brisket burgers, Texas Twinkies. The people of Cincinnati deserve better. And so I think that should be act number one as Mayor Mahomes begins his tenure there to get some Regino barbecue shipped out to Cincinnati.
I'm in. We need to head out to Olton, too.
Yeah, we do.
It's been a while.
Okay, continue with the segue.
All right. You know what I didn't do there, Kyle? When you interrupted me?
What's
I
that?
completely shut down and move on. I allowed you to give your piece.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's great when you let me get through an ad read.
Texas Tech basketball beating LSU, finishing a game in which it really looked like they were not going to do for a while, calling some good timeouts, letting some young guys get some run. Kerwin Walton, 5 of 6. Money, thoughts on the game?
You needed it. You definitely needed a win. Bye, Kyle, again. I mean,
again.
To come off of an 8-game losing streak, you needed that one, especially against a team that's as bad as LSU is. You really couldn't afford to lose that one, or else it was gonna feel like the sky was really starting to fall. I've seen a lot of different kind of opinions on the win and what it means going forward, and I think a lot of people are viewing this in terms of resume, but kind of where I'm at right now is Tech isn't making the tournament, and so they just need to take wins where they can get them. And I think in that game, you finally got some offensive juice. You made shots. You actually had your best offensive performance on the road in terms of a points per possession basis since you went to Waco and played the eventual national champions in the game where Maceo Teague made 10 threes, and you just kind of had to keep shooting to keep up in that game. And so you had a pretty crazy efficient night shooting the basketball. I don't think you can replicate 61% from deep every night, but I do think that there were some things that were promising, especially Kerwin Walton making shots. I thought Elijah Fisher playing a career high in minutes. He had his ups and downs, but he gives your team some length that it really needs. Kevin O'Banner had a game where I think he really needed to shake whatever was going on with him, see the ball go through the basket a couple of times. Davion Harmon played a pretty good game, 8 assists, really showed that he could, kind of run that role at least for now. While Pop is out, we'll see what happens once you get back to the league, especially tomorrow night. playing one of the best defensive teams in the conference. But I think where I'm at right now, put all the quality of the win aside. We can get into that if we want. But you put all the net rankings aside, all the analytical models aside, which I do like to reference. And this was just a game that you needed to win. You won it. They clawed back in. You look at the win probability charts. Texas Tech has, it's kind of like up and down and up and down and up and down, but you finally closed it out. And I think that gives you something to hang your hat on. It gives you at least somewhat of a pulse before the Cyclones come to town tomorrow night. And you've at least got some life in you.
You unmuted, Kyle. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot to add here because I didn't get to watch any of the game. I mostly have some questions if y'all are able to answer them for me. We can do like interview style here. But what was the score at halftime? Were we winning at halftime?
Yes. It was a 5-ish point game.
41-33 at half.
Okay, so we were up by 8, and we won by about 8, right? Okay. I was just curious because of the trend we've observed earlier in the season versus Big 12 opponents about kind of just completely tanking after halftime on those win probability charts. What the heck? I don't want to be negative Nancy after our first win against a team with a pulse all year. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because Eastern Washington, as of today, is actually a better win than LSU. But is it possible to like almost have more questions after a win in terms of like, okay, Kerwin Walton started the season as a 6th man, disappears, doesn't get any minutes, and then comes back and looks like he can't miss. Elijah Fisher, highly touted guy, young guy. I don't know. He gets no minutes. It's like we're begging him to transfer. Ryan, you noted that he's removed all mentions of Texas Tech from his social media profiles. And it's like, okay, it's almost like he just is holding us hostage. And it's like, okay, we're finally going to give him some minutes because we know he's pissed off. And then he plays well. And you have this 0-10 start against Quad 1 and Quad 2 teams. What do you have to lose by letting some young guys go get some experience? So I'm glad we won. I'm not trying to rain on the parade. I agree, Ryan. It's not like a resume win because I think you're just too far gone for that discussion. But I just have more questions now about the roster management, the coaching staff on why guys like Kerwin Walton and Elijah Fisher weren't featured more prominently when clearly whatever else you were trotting out there wasn't working very well.
That's something I've been harping on. Like you're 0-7, 0-5, 0-6, 0-7, 0-8 in Big 12 play. What does it hurt to play these other guys? And I understand you go out and play them and you have kind of a wider bench because you're playing a team like LSU. I guess you're not in conference play. You've loosened it up again, but one of the huge things you've been missing is a long wing defensively to jump a passing lane or get some rebounds in the mid-range, some of these longer rebounds that are just standing there and bouncing back to guards. Who did that? Elijah Fisher. And if he can not do that in the Big 12, I guess he can't, and you're not going to see him, and he's not going to get the ability to. But I mean, 9 rebounds, 2 steals, and 5 points in 20 minutes. That's not bad minutes from a freshman at all. And if he makes the bunny that he missed, and maybe one of the other contested layups or makes a free throw or two, he's up to 9 and 8, and that's exactly where you want him to be.
Well, there was a point in the season where it looked like that 6th man role was in flux, and like certainly your bench production was lacking. But then it looked for a little while like Lamar Washington had kind of carved that out, and even though he's a true freshman, it seemed like the coaching staff was trusting him with some pretty big minutes. And so I just don't know, man. It's nearly February, and it feels like the coaching staff still doesn't even know their own roster that well. And I get it. Guys ebb and flow. They have good weeks of practice, bad weeks of practice. There have been some injuries. But I don't know. It just seems like the people paid to do this should have kind of sorted this out and had a better idea about who their roster is, and some of the best lineup combos to put out there would be earlier in the season. So I don't know what you make of that, Ryan, but when I was looking at the box score, I was like, sweet, Kerwin Walton had a great game. Elijah Fisher played well in his minutes, but why didn't we see this any sooner?
Yeah, and I think the verdict has been out on Fisher really before he even reclassified, and that this was a guy that's going to be really raw. Even expecting him to be a 23 guy, he just didn't have a lot in his offensive bag that was promising in terms of projecting onto this level of college basketball at an elite level. Now, that's not to say that he isn't going to be a good college basketball player. It's just saying he's raw. It's going to take some time. And at moments, his athleticism is going to take over. But other than that, you're going to have to surround him with guys. He can't be the guy. And so I think when you've got a guy like that who's raw and probably isn't ready to be playing, 20 minutes night in and night out, you've got to see something from him that shows up elsewhere. And that was rebounding against LSU, which it is, rebounds get inflated in terms of their importance, but it truly is an effort stat, especially when 3 of those 9 are offensive rebounds and you're essentially playing a wing role, a big wing role. And so I think that shows that he's willing to kind of buckle down, make the hard plays, put in the work on the glass. That's really promising. And I think if he can do that, then he's just going to keep earning minutes. And so I'm excited about what I saw. I still think he's pretty raw. I don't know what he'll look like in Big 12 play. I'm excited to see kind of what they do with his minutes against Iowa State. But I'm with you. The rotations are kind of all over the place. And even in this game, when you're without Pop Isaacs and kind of felt like Lamar Washington was starting to form into a really solid backup primary ball handler. And then he plays 6 minutes, like the same amount as KJ Allen, which I don't know, man. I don't really like that. And so we'll see what happens. I think right now the reality is with this team fully healthy is not a deep team. Like this is a 7-man rotation, probably at best. And so I don't really think we'll ever get to a point where there's a clear 6-man or 6 starter, whatever you want to call it. I think that this is really just going to be plug and play. And when you find something that works, you're just going to keep trying to utilize that, tap into that. And when it doesn't, you got to be willing to adjust and make some changes, which is where I think things have been a little bit delayed. Obviously, when you go on an 8-game losing streak, that tends to happen. But it's really a mystery. I think tomorrow night will tell me a lot more than Saturday did in terms of kind of where this team is headed, what the coaching staff is thinking in terms of the rotation, and really what they can be.
Defensively, does it make sense to run a lineup of Lamar Washington, Tyson, Elijah Fisher, O'Banner, and Bacho? I mean, just to up the defense. I don't know if that offensively is exactly what you want, but in stretches, especially against a team like Iowa State, it feels like that could be a good 5 to 8 minute run where you could just get some defense out there, especially on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's a pretty salty defensive squad. Ryan, you tweeted this. It sounds like really obvious, but the importance of shot making, which, like, yeah, duh, in the sport of basketball, making shots is helpful. But it's been a rough go at times offensively, and that's where Kerwin Walton, kind of on a heater lately, was super helpful on Saturday. And you're not going to expect him to kind of maintain this level of efficiency over the long haul. But even if he dropped off a little bit, he'd still be a solid offensive player the way he's shooting. Talk about his importance, I guess, to this team's offensive dynamic, because the numbers you put out there kind of indicate there's nobody else really even close to him in terms of offensive efficiency lately.
Yeah, you're a terrible 3-point shooting team. You're dead last in the Big 12 and 3-point percentage. You're sub 30% right now, which is terrible. It's even worse when your opponents are making like 36% from deep because your defense hasn't been good. And so, I mean, this is a 3-point shooting sport now. You've got to be able to shoot the ball to win. And so to have a guy like Kerwin Walton, who's been reliably making shots, when he's on the floor, your offense is immediately going to be better. And for all the talk about the Steve Green offensive scheme and what's really happening with the offensive playbook, none of this works if you don't have shooters. None of it. I mean, your offense just shrinks. And part of that has been, Kevin O'Banner has been a complete no-show from deep for most of this season. I really hope that he can stack the success that he had on Saturday. Pop Isaacs has been huge in terms of just generating shots from the perimeter, both his own and shots for other guys. But looking at a guy like Kerwin Walton, it's kind of crazy. Just mentioning his up and down start to the season, playing a lot of minutes early in non-conference. Then he's at the end of the bench, and I'm at the point where I'm like, I feel like I haven't seen him in a couple of games. Like, this is just going to be a guy that's almost like a Sardar Calhoun type, where you brought in a guy to be a shooter, and if he's not making shots, then he's not going to play. But now you've got Kerwin Walton, who's 21 of 42 on the season. And so I think that's a really promising development. I don't think he'll continue to be a 50% three-point shooter, but even, 36 plus will do this team a lot of good.
Something you said there, again, I don't want to rain on the parade here because I know LSU is our Super Bowl.
It feels like you do a little bit.
And we're now 1-10 against these types of Power 6 schools. All offseason, it seemed like they were recruiting a different style of team versus last season's Sweet 16 squad, where you had great defenders all around and, horrible, like historically bad three-point shooting. And so they bring in guys like Kerwin Walton, Damarian Williams, Fardaws, who is a good three-point shooter, not at a high volume, and of course he's been hurt. But it seemed clear that they were trying to sort of transform the identity of this team. And to parlay all of that into still sucking at three-point shooting is either a miss on the recruiting, a miss on the development, or a miss on the implementation of the scheme. Whether it's one, two, or a combination of all three of those, I think it doesn't reflect great on the staff. And so that's been disappointing. And I guess Kerwin Walton is kind of like the lone beacon, the only guy kind of doing what he was recruited to do as far as three-point shooting goes. And you hit on a couple other guys like him that could shoot that well at a high volume and, play 20 to 30 minutes a night, maybe this season would look a little different. But I think that's a failure when you pretty clearly say, okay, we're going to go a different direction. We're going to be a better three-point shooting team, and you're still way worse than all your peers. That's just not so great.
And there's almost been an admit of defeat there. I mean, publicly from Adams. I mean, he has publicly said, hey, this offseason, we need to get older. We need to find a guy. We need to bring in some talent. And that's almost like a way of, to me, it's just saying like, we swung and we hit a couple of good balls, but we also whiffed on some of these. And I think part of it is just you had a blueprint last year that worked really well and you veered off of that. And so we'll see. I mean, you've still got a couple of weeks of basketball left. Got to make the most of them, which won't be easy if you're looking at analytical models. I'm looking at T-Rank right now. You're projected to lose your next 9 games and then cap off the season with a win against Oklahoma State. So it's going to be tough sledding, man. This conference is not easy any year, but this year especially, you're going to have to fight night in, night out.
I think part of what drew a lot of fans, myself included, to Joey McGuire in the football program this season was like they were very public about this is what we're going to do. And like he talked about the brand. They made a freaking documentary about the brand. And he was pounding his chest all offseason. We're going to be the toughest, hardest working, most competitive team in the country. And that's great to say. But had they just showed up like the Texas Tech teams of the last decade, then it would have been like just empty words, But over and over, they found themselves in tough spots. And even when I'm like, a fan, I've got fragile emotions and I'm watching the game and I'm like, oh, we just blew it. And then Joey McGuire's teams come storming back and they prove that they're really freaking tough between the years, that they're not ever going to quit, that you can't count them out. And so they like backed up what they were saying. And I think there's something to that. If you say, hey, our offensive identity is going to be smash mouth football. We're going to move bodies, run the ball down your throat, and then you go out and average like 2.5 yards per carry and then throw it 45 times a game. That's a failure to live up to your identity, your scheme. And so I think that was so great about the football program, and like the fans start to hop on the bandwagon. Like, okay, yeah, we're the toughest, most competitive, hardworking. So anyway, yeah, I'm beating a dead horse here, but yeah, to say we're going to be better at 3-point shooting, and then yeah, halfway through conference play, be like, well, we still suck at this. We need to bring in older guys, better shooters, because we totally failed at what we were trying to do. Is kind of a pretty significant admission, like you said.
Yeah, and I think you just need an identity at this point. I mean, you look at the team last year and you look at the team this year, and there's almost like no continuity between the two. I mean, they look like two completely different programs. And so I think it's about finding an identity and then leaning into that, which, I mean, the defensive model seemed to work pretty well. And so we'll see what happens this offseason.
Yeah, that's my whole thing. Like, going back to all of the years you've had success, last year, the Elite Eight run, you had an offensive identity. Your offensive identity was Keenan Evans at the end of games, right? And then the next year it was Jarrett Culver and Tariq Owens defensively, kind of the eraser. That was your identity. And you kind of wandered, as Jemias Ramsey, our identity. You're kind of 500. You don't go to the tournament because it's COVID, and then you have Mac McClung.
You go to the tournament.
Yeah, the banner.
You go to the
arena
tournament.
says otherwise.
Okay. And then you might have qualified for the tournament with Jemias Ramsey. And then you go to Mac McClung. What's the identity? Kyler Edwards is mad. We're kind of going back and forth. Who is D Wade? and then last year you had an obvious identity in defense and hard nose and tough and Bryson Williams. And then this year you're back to kind of leaderless. When you have a guy, you're so much better. And that's so dumb to say, I guess, because in college basketball, you look at every team ever, and you have the guy, right? You just don't have that. You haven't had that a few years. And when you have had it, and it's been on the offensive side, Jemias and Mac McClung, those were your two worst years of the last 6. So I don't know why in the last 2 years, Mark Adams has been so kind of in the offseason, so worried about the offense. Just do what you do, man. Just buy back into the culture, buy back in that you're going to be the best defensive team in the country, and score enough. And I think that's going to be a plan. And if Mark Adams is the head coach here in 3 years, that's what he did. He bought back in and just went defense and went and got some tough, long defenders and scored inside the paint and mucked it up for everybody else. By the way, Elijah Fisher, underrated passer, I thought, at LSU. He was only credited with 1 assist, but I thought he found some good passes and a couple of skip passes, which you don't see from Texas Tech very much.
My last thought on this, you're talking about the guy. That's 100% true. I really do think they thought Fardaws was going to be the guy this year. And obviously injuries play into that. But that also feels like a veer off course compared to what the rest of the Big 12 is doing in a model that's proven to be successful. Is you've got teams like Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas that are getting long, athletic. They're focusing on the defensive end. And those teams offensively orient around guards. Baylor obviously always kind of has like this random tall guy down low that just gives you a headache every game. Kansas always runs like 5, 6, 7 guys at a time. But then it's like you kind of saw this big man in the portal who is talented. And I really do think that he was one of the best available players in the portal last year. And it was like, let's redesign our entire offense around this. And then he gets hurt. And so a lot of things not falling in your favor there. But I do think that the blueprint for Tech the last couple of years has been when we've got a guy offensively, it's a guard, specifically a guard that can go get his own shot. That doesn't always lead to the most efficient offense. Like you mentioned, Jamias Ramsey, Mac McClung. Those guys could be headaches at times. Even Jarrett Culver had his moments where it was like, dude, what are you doing? But I think that's a blueprint that's worked for Tech the last couple of years. I think that's what they've really got to do this offseason is get a guy who can get his own bucket and preferably one that does so at an efficient clip.
Hot Rod, Rye Guy, were y'all surprised at all that Iowa State is only about a 1.5 point favorite tomorrow night?
No, nothing surprises me in the Big 12 as far as home lines. TCU coming off the 20-point win, and Lawrence was a 3-point dog in Morgantown. And they were 0-6.
Right, Guy?
I might be more surprised at the fact that analytical models are projecting you as about a 1-point dog.
Yeah.
So it's very surprising to me that Vegas is lining up with the model here because they beat the brakes off of you earlier this season. And so, I mean, that kind of feels like that would swing you into a tough position. Obviously, Tech at home has been a very favorable line for the Red Raiders the last couple of years, but it's surprising to me that this game is hovering around 1 point, both in terms of projections and from Vegas.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting like a huge line or anything, but I think maybe the home court advantage is a little overstated based on where it has been in years past versus like the last few home games where it hasn't been 15,000 people in there. I was thinking more in the neighborhood of like Iowa State by 4. You know, like I said, I wasn't expecting some huge line, being a home dog, but it is a lot more narrow than I expected. And I've referenced this before on the podcast, but that's part of why I enjoy following sports betting odds, even if you're not placing a wager, just to kind of get a sense of where the smart people kind of anticipate. Because it used to drive me crazy when Tech football fans would gripe after a loss, like, "How did you lose to?" And I'm like, "Well, you were 8.5-point dogs. Like, you weren't expected to win that game more than, I don't know, 20% of the time." And so now it's kind of the script has been flipped, and people think we suck. Iowa State's going to boat race us by 25 tomorrow, and they might. But the odds makers, are still giving you a ton of credit. And so I like to look at some of the same analytics models you do, Ryan, and pay attention to the odds market, even if you're not placing a wager, to kind of get a sense for a baseline of expectations, I guess. And I think Tech fans that don't follow sports betting that closely would be surprised to learn that it's pretty close to a coin flip tomorrow.
And I think one thing that really works in your favor there is when you ran into Iowa State earlier this year, you were really struggling with the turnover bug. I mean, you turned the ball over on 27.8% of your possessions that game, which is terrible. And you've been decent the last couple of games. It hasn't been great, but you've managed to get it under control, at least to some degree. Iowa State is actually the best defense in the country at forcing turnovers. And so you're about to see tomorrow night just how much the improvement has been made in terms of protecting the ball, what the offensive scheme looks like against Big 12 competition. So I'm excited. I think that win against LSU really helped you kick some of the dust off your feet, at least get your head up a little bit. And now you've got a real test against what I really do think is the first or second best defensive team in the country. I mean, they're good. They're really good. So we'll see.
Is Caleb Grill expected to play? Do we know? He didn't play against
Mizzou.
Missouri. Now, by the way, home team's 8-2 in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Kansas and Texas Tech, the only road teams that won. Any real surprises? I was not surprised at the Iowa State. Well, I was surprised at how bad they lost, but I wasn't surprised they lost. Was not surprised at all that Oklahoma beat Alabama. Was surprised it was by 30. That's a classic Porter Moser spot. He nobody else is better at beating good teams and losing to bad teams than Porter Moser. That's why he was so good in the NCAA tournament at Loyola. He's just an upset guy. Any other results surprise you beyond that?
TCU Mississippi State was a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Chris Jans is a hell of a coach. but that's a program that still feels like they're a couple of years away. And so to go into that game and lose in overtime, obviously Mike Miles went down with the injury, so they weren't at full strength. But that's a result that surprised me when I was looking into LSU stuff before the game. While I was obviously still focused on LSU, a lot of Mississippi State popping up kind of right there at the bottom of the SEC with LSU. And so to see them knock off TCU was a bit of a surprise to me.
You said Mississippi State's head coach. You're fond of him?
I do enjoy his scheme. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about his resume and his scheme.
Yeah, so this is his first Power 5 job, I believe. Came over from New Mexico State. They're a team that really wants to live on the defensive end of the ball. Their offense has been dreadful this year, like really bad. They're 331st in the country in effective field goal percentage, which is just terrible. But you look at their defense, they're 14th in T rank in defensive efficiency. They force their opponents to turn the ball over a lot. They defend the perimeter really well. They just have no offense. They have no offense this year, which is a lot like another coach that I'm fond of that's quite a bit closer to me, and is coaching basketball in Denton, Texas right now. So I think this is a scheme that you've got to be really intentional in how you construct your roster and finding that balance, which is exactly what I think Mark Adams tried to do this offseason. Was find the balance, and I think they overcorrected one way. But yeah, I think Chris Jans is a good coach. He's got some good energy to him as well. Made the tournament last year. I think they went like 27-12. He had a couple of tournament teams earlier in the year. I think the only year he didn't make the tournament at New Mexico State was the COVID year. So he's a guy that's won at a high level for quite a bit.
Well, Mississippi State is certainly not a high-level basketball program. A program with better resources, maybe more fan engagement, could be enticed to a guy like Chris Jans if he wanted to take the next step in his career.
Is it Jans or Jans?
Well, I hope it's Jans.
It's Jans.
Is he is the Germanic origin?
Yeah, it's a soft J.
Yeah. Did you know one time? All right, quick getting to know the Gauchos.
Of course.
So I had a freshman football coach who called me Jakobsen, and I thought it was funny. And so when I went off to Austin College to be a kangaroo up in Sherman, the coaches were still like getting to know the players' names, and like so they're watching film and they don't know who's who, and they're like, "Who is this?" And they like point at me with the laser pointer, and I was like, "That's Jakobsen, coach." He was like, "Jakobsen, I thought your last name was Jacobson." I was like, "No, it's actually like I'm of Norwegian descent. It's Jakobsen." And he called me Jakobsen for the rest of the semester.
You never corrected him?
No, I think he knew I was joking, but he didn't correct himself, so he just went with it.
That's good. I'm gonna start calling you Jakobsen.
Yeah, cool story, bro.
Will you tell us the Subway story?
Yeah, so one time I went into Subway and I had these, or that they were running a special for a 6-inch sub for $2.
Uh-huh.
And this is during the era of the $5 footlong. So I was like, well, if they're selling you 12 inches of sandwich, 2 pieces at a time, 6 inches, that'd be $4.
Right.
So I wonder if there's also a corresponding deal on the footlong, because it wouldn't make any sense for the 6-inch to cost less per inch than the footlong. Like usually the more you buy in bulk, the better per unit, the price is. So I asked the cashier, I was like, oh, how much is it for a footlong? Because that's how much sandwich I ate. She's like, well, it's $5. And just had this like totally blank look on her face. And I was like trying not to laugh. I was like, do you see why that's stupid? I was like, okay, then like give me 2 6-inch cold cuts then instead of like the footlong. And she rang it up and it was $4. But I was like, how is this not like $3.50 or something? Didn't make any sense. But anyway, that's my Subway story.
You're a cold cuts guy?
That's what I got back in the day.
Okay. What's your go-to Subway sandwich now?
I don't really go to Subway, but probably either like the Philly cheesesteak or the meatball sub.
Did you see they came out with a new one with the meatball sub that has pepperonis on it?
I didn't see that because I haven't been to Subway in like 8 years.
Well, there's a commercial all over the place. They showed it like 6 times tonight. The boss.
I don't pay attention to commercials because I'm not buying what you're selling.
Okay. Ryan, what's your go-to Subway sandwich?
Chicken bacon ranch.
That's a good one. I used to do the roasted chicken. I got a free Subway. I have a Subway sandwich story. I went to Subway one time, and the lady was like, "Hey, do you know what a BMT stands for? If you know what it means, I'll give you the sandwich for free." And I was like, "Yeah, the Boston Manhattan Transit, but Subway calls it the bigger, meatier, tastier." So I got a free sandwich because I knew both.
We need to. Ryan, do you
have a Subway story?
Yeah, we need to like start bench cut the Subway stories.
Actually, I do.
Okay.
It almost has nothing to do with Subway. I was really young, probably like 8 or 9. I was on a vacation to Washington, D.C., and my family was eating Subway in this food court mall. No idea why we chose to eat lunch in a food court. But we were eating Subway, and at some point I'm like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, I guess I'll just go on my own. Kind of young, but I'll knock myself out. And so I go to the bathroom in this food court, and it's a single privacy, which I enjoy. And I lock the door, take care of business, ready to leave. Try to open the door, it doesn't open. Just doesn't open. And so I'm pressing the lock, nothing's happening. Keep messing with the handle, nothing's happening. And so at some point, like 8-year-old me is like, I'm stuck in this food court bathroom where it's loud. My parents are like yards away from me. There's no way. And so I just started freaking out, just banging on the door. At some point, this Subway worker walks over and opens the door. I'm like bawling in tears. And she's like, are you okay? And I just like run straight to my parents. So that's my Subway story. Lots of childhood trauma in there.
Yeah.
Probably why I'm not a Subway frequenter, but hey.
Do you lock bathrooms now, or are you the guy that doesn't lock bathrooms anymore?
Depends. I really like to lock doors at any chance. Very paranoid person. Especially if I'm like in public or at somebody's house where there's a lot of people. Really like to not play Russian roulette by leaving the door open. So typically I'm a locked guy, but every once in a while I'll lock it. My mind will just go back to being 8 years old in Washington, D.C. and getting stuck. Now it feels like I can't breathe. So very glad we got to share our stories.
Yeah.
Rob, have you ever been locked in a restroom?
I've been stuck in a restroom, yes. Got stuck in a stall one time. Different kind of story, though.
I got locked in a restroom. Sounds like kind of a similar deal to Ryan, but I was older. Do we have time for another getting to know the Gauchos?
Yeah, man, we got all the time in the world.
So this is back when Mrs. Jacobson was actually just my girlfriend. And I drive to Waco to ask her parents if I'm allowed to ask her to marry me. And like, as I'm leaving her house, which that conversation went well, by the way, I go to the gas station to get more gas because I have to drive back to Austin. And I use the restroom. There's a sign that says like, do not lock the door. And I was like, well, that's a stupid sign. Like, I'm in the restroom. So I lock the door. And same deal, like it doesn't unlock from the inside or it doesn't open. And so like same deal, I'll just start like banging on the door and the employee comes, he was like, it says like don't lock the door. I was like, well, you're an idiot because I'm in a public restroom. I'm not gonna leave the door unlocked while I'm in here.
Right.
It's like, how about you fix your door? Like, there's a problem with it. So that's the only time I was locked in a restroom. It took me like 10 seconds to get out.
We did when I was growing up in the house I grew up in, obviously. The bathroom was one of those push buttons. And then the other side was like a little hole. You have to put the ice pick in there to unlock it. Got locked in that a few times. There's a kind of it's like a closet shelving unit that had a window into it. So
all right, I'm starting Ryan's Subway story, benching mine, and cutting yours, Rob.
I have one more Subway story that I can't tell on this show, but I'm just going to give you the final line of it. I had to eat Subway on the way home from a road trip in grippy socks. On the way home of a road trip to Austin, I didn't have any shoes left and only had grippy socks
Were you on your way home during this?
from Austin. Yes.
All right. How about this? You have to share the full story in the Discord for Patreon subscribers only, which if you want to join patreon.com/gamblinggouchers, you get access to the #1 Texas Tech fan Discord server, live episodes, other perks, exclusive interviews, all that good stuff. It's a lot of fun. You should join. It's only $5 a month. And you get access to Rob's Subway story about the time he was on his way home from a road trip. Also, Discord mailbag, which I guess we'll get to presently.
Let's do it.
Sponsored by Diversified Lenders.
Yep. Go ahead.
That's it. Right? It's just sponsored by Diversified Lenders.
Can I finish? Take your accounts in a receivable and turn them into cash. All right, let me scroll back here. The mailbag got a little wild this weekend.
Doesn't sound right. Never gets wild.
Oh, I have
Never goes off the rails in there.
I have one that was not on the Discord, just from Twitter. This is from our mutual friend, Kyle. If someone offered you $1,000 for every hour straight you stayed awake, how long do you think you could last? For comparison, the Guinness World Record is 11 days and 25 minutes. So $1,000 per hour, how long could you stay awake?
So I've done 24 hours easily, routinely, multiple times.
Yeah.
I think 36 would be, that would require some effort. I really don't know if I could go more than like 48 hours.
Funny?
24, maybe. I'm weak.
I think of the three of us, I could probably last the longest, but it would probably be close.
I'm not sure what strategies I would employ to keep myself awake. Like, yeah, are you allowed to,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
Caffeine or whatnot.
Yeah, caffeine. That's what I was thinking.
Go for a walk.
Yeah.
Watch a movie. I was trying to sleep last night, and I was like, I'm going to start this movie. And I watched a whole movie. And I was like, I'll start another one just to fall asleep to. And I watched 2 movies last night. It's like 4 hours I was up last night just trying to sleep.
I've actually been doing that with audiobooks because you can set a timer for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And the one I'm listening to right now is like super boring. And so I listen to it on like slow-mo, like 0.8 speed. And it puts me right to sleep. It's great.
All right, let's get to the Discord mailbag. What is your favorite non-essential kitchen gadget / device? Non-essential kitchen gadget.
I've got a really solid coffee setup. I've got an espresso machine, high quality grinder, a lot of pour over equipment. None of that is necessary, but huge coffee guy, and I dig my coffee home setup.
Big coffee guy. That's a good comment, Ryan. Imagine that same scenario, but Rob's Subway story. That'd be even worse. This is probably a stupid answer to your question, but there's these like, I don't know what you'd call them. It's like a koozie, but for a bowl, like of hot soup or something. And so it's great if you want to be mobile and like eat on the couch or something, but you don't have anything to set the bowl on, but it's too hot to hold in your hands. And so we use those a lot in the winter when we're eating like chili soups, things like that. That's pretty clutch, but it's not necessary, I wouldn't say.
And grab a towel.
Yeah, like I used to live without them, and then somebody gifted them to me. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Is it a one size fits all most bowls, or is it pretty snug to a certain bowl?
No, it's one size fits most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say the football team and basketball team played 5-on-5. Who would the football team run out to keep it respectable?
Tyree Wilson to anchor the middle. 6'6", 275 with the arms there. I think he could probably do all right for himself as a defensive big man. I don't know. Who played basketball in high school from the current football roster? I know Cameron Cantrell can dunk.
Yeah. Are we counting Tyree Wilson?
Well, maybe not. Maybe that's a reach. Well, how about Miles Cole for the same
Yeah.
role? All right, Miles Cole, Cameron Cantrell, help me out here, right guy. Who would you put out there?
He had to have been a freshman or a sophomore at the time, but when I was a student at Tech, and I would go in the rec center, Sir Roderick Thompson would be playing basketball almost every time I was at the rec, just playing pickup, and he was good, really good ball handler. He's obviously very explosive guy, and so I'm taking him as my lead guard and just letting him wreck dudes.
I would venture to guess there's probably quite a few basketball hoopers on the roster.
Can I cheat and take Anthony White?
Yes. He's coming.
Did Jaron Bradley play basketball with Jalen Tyson in high school?
Ooh, there is some football player
Yes.
receiver. Yeah. Is it Jerome Brown?
I mean, he's a legit 6'5", lanky guy. I'd put him out on the squad.
Yeah, a lot of those wide receivers.
He had a couple basketball offers too, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta look that up.
Like Trey Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like, got some length there.
Yeah. All right. We've got a somewhat formidable roster forming here.
Tyler Shuck.
Yep.
He's tall. Need a point guard. Who is one player from this year's team you'd want to add to a Texas Tech basketball team from the past? I would, maybe O'Banner to like that Mac McClung team.
Maybe.
On the 2 Elite 8 runs, there's not a guy on this team I would want to replace any of those guys with.
Let's assume that the COVID year you would get to play in the tournament if you make it that far. You needed a big man. I mean, you had TJ Holyfield out there at 6'7" with a bum shoulder. He was your only big man.
Yeah.
And so could you put a Bacho or an O'Banner even just to kind of like reinforce the depth in the front court there? I think that might be a good fit.
Bacho on several of those teams I think would fit.
Yeah.
But I'm drawing a blank.
I would not put I would add this whole roster to like 2013, but
yeah.
I'm thinking like who's a guy I could put on the 17-18 team to really push them over the ledge, help them kind of fight through Keenan's injury. But at that point, like Pop's the best player, and that team obviously ran through Keenan. So
maybe as the sixth man, put him out there when Keenan can't go, or let him play the middle 10. How quickly does men's basketball get passed by the baseball team in total wins this year?
Man. So you're at 11 wins right now on the season?
Yep, 11 and 10.
Let's call it 15 wins total by the end of the season. Baseball could get there in a hurry, especially with some of these. I think there are some 4-game series on the schedule really early in the season. If those are 3 out of 4 or full-on sweeps, I mean, it could be spring break. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
At what point do we quit focusing on our next basketball opponent and start focusing on Gonzaga baseball?
I'm there. I am pretty focused on Iowa State. We've got a good meme cooked up for tomorrow, so I guess I can't say that I'm only focused on Gonzaga. I'm still focused on Iowa State. I'm focused on the Eagles too.
You dropping that at 8:06 in the morning, or is that going to be a if we win, you're going to post it?
No, I got to post that no matter what. It's too good.
Okay. Is Kyle the reason the Red Raiders haven't won a Big 12 game yet? Haven't won since his move to Fort Worth? Follow-up question, will Kyle own his mistake?
No, because we didn't win before I moved to Fort Worth either, so I don't see that as the X factor.
To be fair, this question was asked before the LSU game, and so we hadn't won period since you left, but now they've gotten a win in.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I lived in Lubbock, in Maui. I lived in Lubbock, or I didn't live in Lubbock, but I was back and forth. I was in Lubbock for a couple of those Big 12 losses. So, again, I don't think that's the X factor. So, no, I don't take responsibility. You know, Rob, a wise man once said, only apologize if you've done something wrong. And so I'm going to pull a Conor McGregor and apologize to absolutely nobody.
LSU was a Big 12 win, depending on who you ask.
That's true. Jeff Goodman said it was. Ryan, I'm going to focus this one at you. What's our record if we traded Kerwin and DeMarion Williams for Baby Buzo and Nadolny?
You might have one or two more wins.
Yeah, one or two.
Which is, yeah.
I think you beat
tough.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, probably so. You might be able to close out that TCU game, especially with just like letting Nadolny just face guard Mike Miles and see what happens.
How about Texas?
Yeah.
If you could put Nadolny on Marcus Carr in that second half.
Who wins a series of 5 games? This roster or Nadolny, McCullough, Terrence Shannon, Buzo, Savrasov, and Techua?
Probably
all still playing.
Yeah. Probably the second team you listed.
Nadolny's not, but you think so?
Yeah.
If you trade Savrasov for Vlad Golden.
And Vlad Golden, yeah, there you go.
That team might go 5-0. Just play the rest of the series just for fun.
Is Josh Mballa still playing?
And Josh, there's 10. There's an 8. Yeah, so those 8 versus.
Dude, I wish
Burton,
he had stayed.
Bill Walton kid getting some Jamarius Burton. He's having a good season as well.
Dude, if we still had 20-inch blades on the Mballa, there'd be so many good memes.
He was the one that I really didn't want to lose in that stretch of bigs that left.
He's a dog.
Would you take Joey winning 1 Big 12 football conference championship if the trade-off was men's basketball was 0-54 in conference play over a 3-year span?
Right, guy?
No.
This is an easy no to me because Joey's going to get one anyway. You don't have to
sacrifice anything. I would roll the dice.
Easy.
Was Pop the problem the whole time? Confirmed unplayable.
Dude. Jeez.
No. Okay. We talked about this LSU game, but I feel the need to say something. LSU sucks. They're bad. And they played bad to finish that game. You played well. You finished the game strong. But they gave you their best shot in the second half and had zero, especially with the foul trouble with their guard late. That game sucked. If Pop was playing, you probably win by more than 8.
And the thing with them, too, is they should be bad. Like, they lost everyone off their roster last season. New head coach. They should be bad, and they're going to be bad for a couple of years.
I think the account that tweeted that Pop is unplayable thing, even before, like, the injury, and which, like, that would have been a really funny if they're willing to, like, accept the cell phone there to, like, quote tweet their old bad take and be like, see, we're 1-0 without Pop. But even before that, they were, like, asking for an apology about how they were, like, right all along. But they, like, twisted it into something else. And then we're, like, mad at everyone for ratioing them. So, I don't know. Weird deal.
They'll get ratioed again. Hashtag committee don't care, but does the SEC Big 12 championship results confirm that Texas Tech is a good team caught in an elite conference? That was a really let me try that again for the English speakers. Do today's results in the SEC Challenge confirm Texas Tech is a good team caught in an elite conference and good just isn't good enough? Or do we still suck and LSU sucks a little less? The second one to me.
Yeah, LSU is very bad, and they're very bad in a worse conference than you're playing in right now. I think if we're going to talk about the elite play of the Big 12 and the results from this weekend, like look at that OU Alabama game. This conference is stacked. Even the teams that look like they're stuck in the middle or somewhere towards the bottom, those teams can beat anybody in the country.
Yeah, I think words like good and suck in a question like that are pretty relative. It doesn't make me think that we're like a lot closer to our Big 12 peers than I thought going into the game. But it does kind of make me think, okay, if we were Pac-12, ACC, Big East, nobody would think that we suck. We would just be like a mediocre team in one of those conferences.
You're still a good nationally recognized team. You're just bad in the Big 12.
Yeah. Do you know our Ken Palm off the top of your head, Ryan?
I don't, but I can check really quick.
Because I think that's a pretty trusted. If you're in the 60s there, like you're still top 20th percentile in the country. So I wouldn't say you suck, but
you're 66 right now.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of teams would probably love to trade places with you there, but that's not good enough to do much in the Big 12. So I wouldn't say we're a good team trapped in a tough conference. I'd say we're a mediocre team trapped in the best conference in the country, and that's tough night to night.
66 is dead last in the Big 12.
Yeah.
9th is Oklahoma. You want to take a guess at where they're at?
30.
28.
37. Yeah.
What's West now? Top 30.
They're at 20.
20, yeah.
So we have in this conference, you have basically of the top 36 teams in the country, 9 of the 10 teams in this conference make up a quarter of those top 36 teams in the country. So we're talking second weekend teams. If the 32 best teams make the second weekend, we'll have probably 7 or 8 of them there. That's just crazy.
You have 6 teams in the top 20.
That's ridiculous. Hey, shout out to the Big 12 Conference for highlighting a Gaucho's tweet.
Yeah, that was awesome.
They've done. I don't want to take us on a whole 20-minute tangent here because I know we want to wrap up, but the social media after the hire of Brett Yormark has been markedly different in a good way. When you have them kind of chirping at the Pac-12 on TV numbers, postseason numbers, whatever, I think that's a good sign. You need to advocate for yourself in the world of college athletics today. And then to highlight, hey, we were the talk of college basketball Saturday on the SEC Big 12 Challenge by posting 10 or 12 tweets from Big 12 influencers like Mitch Lightfoot, Fran Fraschilla. He's a KU guy. Okay, that's good. You've got all these content creators putting out good stuff about the Big 12, whether it's stupid memes or high praise from a national commentator like Fraschilla. You need to highlight stuff like that. And I feel like the new social media team gets it and has done a good job. And so that's been a welcome change.
I think it was their handle too that tweeted it just meant more to us today.
Yes.
Too, which is chef's kiss.
Excellent.
I'm going to take some fire for not reading all of these, but I feel like we deleted some and some of them are out of context now. So sorry, guys. Start bench cut 24-hour superpowers. You can have this superpower for 24 hours. Flight, communication with animals, or bring back anyone from the dead. I would cut the dead one.
I'm going in that order.
Yeah.
I'm cutting communication with animals. I don't really see how that can be monetized. I'm probably starting bring back somebody from the dead because you can make a crap ton of money on that. Imagine if you could have a live concert with Tupac or something. The amount of dough you could bring in and stream it pay-per-view. You'd never have to work again. And then bench flying, I guess. That'd be fun, but yeah.
How do you prove that you brought him back? And who said Tupac was dead?
Well, I'm not saying you have to prove it, but just if you could be the promoter, hey, Tupac is back for one night only, that would sell a lot of tickets.
It's true. You're such a capitalist. Start bench cut Girl Scout cookie edition Thin Mints peanut butter patties. That's the tag-alongs apparently, and then the Caramel Delights, which is the former Samoas.
Starting the Thin Mints, benching the Caramel Delights, cutting peanut butter.
Same.
I'm throwing all of those in the trash and buying a box of lemonade cookies.
I like what are they called? Thanks a lots or
never heard of those.
What's the it's like a shortbread with chocolate on the back.
Oh yeah, those are good.
What's it called?
No idea.
We cannot move on until we figure this out.
We can. Do the Cowboys need a quarterback like Jalen Hurts if they want to do well in the playoffs? Hurts was 15 to 25 for 121 yards, 0 touchdowns.
They're like the thanks a lots or the you betchas or something like that.
Which alumni from your school would you want to coach your team? Kyle's going to go off and Google it.
I'm trying to find it and I can't. They've got a s'mores one. I had a s'mores one a couple of years ago. That was good.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't have a Girl Scout cookie hookup right now. I need to go find one.
Alumni that I want coaching my team. Lincoln Riley.
Baseball's easy. It's Tim Tadlock.
I was way off. They're called Toastiers, and it's like a cinnamon. It's not a chocolate. I whiffed on that, guys. That's my bad.
Yeah, I'd never heard of what you were talking about. I was just trying to move on.
Yeah, Toastiers.
This is like a snickerdoodle?
It's probably similar to that.
Okay.
Or like a cinnamon roll kind of flavored. Yeah.
That's your favorite? You don't know anything about it?
Well, they were like new last year.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Which alumni would you want to coach your team, Kyle?
In what sport?
Well, baseball, we decided it was Tim Tadlock while you were gone.
Yeah.
Basketball, I mean, you have one now. Coach.
Sorry.
Noren Sodiase.
Noren Sodiase would be a great one. Darvin Ham, I wanted last year.
Darvin Ham, yeah, that's the answer.
And then football.
Lincoln
was mentioned.
I'd go Lincoln, Aranda, Anthony Lynn.
Yeah. Patrick when he retires.
Sonny Dykes. Garrett Riley.
Mateo says John
Zach
Hinckley Jr. He also said another one, but asked us not to say it.
Oh, he said, what did he say? Oh, yeah. No, yeah. We're not going to go there.
Rhymes with fart smiles.
All right. Maddie, Rob said it, not me.
Between him and the Liver King, I feel like we really need a punch above our weight class when it comes to alumni you don't want to claim. Who doesn't want to claim Liver King?
John Hinckley.
He apologized. Okay, now we're off the rails here. Does the AFC Championship count towards the Big 12 SEC Challenge?
Sure. Just run up the score.
Over under the Big 12 schedule gets released by Wednesday.
Doesn't it have to? Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I feel like this is one of those things, just like they say, oh, you have to schedule 12 years out.
It'll be out on Tuesday.
Well, I think the networks could be like, hey, we're giving a 60-day extension. You know, like it's all made up. So, yeah, it has to be by February 1st, but unless the networks give you a 30-day extension or, I mean, you could get around that probably.
Tuesday, 11 a.m. You have a prediction?
No.
Okay.
I'll trail you.
Ryan, do you have a prediction?
Later than sooner, probably.
Okay. So I'll take that one and you'll take after that.
Dude, I wish that they could just kick out Texas and OU. And
yeah.
I kind of thought that's what was holding this up and was just like rooting for, like, you know what, whatever they want, just, I mean, obviously get what you're owed in some form or fashion, but then, yeah, just let them go. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Steven Stevens already renewed his season tickets regardless of the schedule. Good for you.
Yeah. I will too.
You haven't yet?
No, I just got the text last week to renew, so I've got to do that.
With your seat backs?
Yeah. Hate to brag.
No, you don't. Final thoughts?
I'll let Rye Guy go first.
Rye Guy.
Beat Iowa State. Don't turn the ball over. Love y'all.
Hell yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. And go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
Love y'all.
Love you guys.